morning and happy Saturday. It's probably not Saturday morning when you're watching this, but it is Saturday morning when I am recording this. So I actually had a light in front of me, but then the sun came out, and so I'm just gonna use natural light. And as the sun moves, so shall I. That said, I am James, your friendly neighborhood anthropologist, and it has been about a year since I have made a video. I have been very busy traveling, finishing grad school, presenting at symposiums and conferences, and leading a jazz band. I've had a lot going on, but hopefully in the second half of this year, I'm going to have much more time to produce videos on this channel. That said, I have some big plans for the rest of the year. I am going to be doing these country visits and these city visits so that you can see what it's like in certain places, be it Colombia, Turkey, Greece, Tunisia, Morocco, Spain, and a few other places I'm gonna be in the upcoming 18 months or so. So be on the lookout for that. It's not going to be like this travel vlog, how not to get scammed BS that like a lot of Euro-American tourists do. We're going to have like little breakdowns of the culture, the people, the politics, the food, and all kinds of music and all kinds of other things. So that's on the horizon pretty soon. The first one's going to be coming out in a few weeks because I will be in Morocco in 4 days from the recording of this video. So hopefully I can get some good footage while I'm there, and we're gonna be learning about Morocco together. Also, we are going to be talking about human evolution later on this channel. I've got 2 videos planned for that. I'm not a biological anthropologist, but I know a lot, and so we'll be talking about that in the upcoming few weeks. And we're also going to be talking about my own research, some political stuff, some economic stuff. A bunch of stuff is going to go on. I have some videos planned about IQ. It's going to be a good rest of the year, so just keep that on your horizon. But today's video is going to be a little bit different. I am going to be responding to this guy because he's a little bit confused about what anthropology is, what anthropology does, if there's jobs in anthropology, and all kinds of stuff like that. And so rather than pedantically critique and fact check every point that he makes in this video, I'm just going to use his video as a springboard to explain what is anthropology, what do we do, what kind of jobs can you get, and honestly, what is the point of all of this, right? So stay tuned. That's what we're going to be doing today. Let's roll the clip. I do just want to say that this video is pretty much completely unscripted. I don't have a teleprompter in front of me today. I don't even have a light in front of me today. I just wanted to use this video, 1, to get back into it, and to 2, talk about why I think this is important. There's kind of this attempt to get rid of our social sciences and our humanities. We tell the kids learn how to code, and so they all go into STEM. Not even all in the STEM, they all go into computer science. It's a whole mess, and they're told that this is the only way that you can earn a good living. And so this video is really for that young student who's maybe a first year or second year deciding what kind of major they're going to have, and they've heard that degrees like anthropology or music are not worth it and that they shouldn't pursue it. And I am here to say it is worth it. You should do it if that's what you are interested in. I double majored in jazz studies and anthropology. I lead a jazz band and I work in anthropology. So I feel like I am a good guy to talk about it. So let's talk about it. First of all, before we could even talk about why he's wrong, let's hear him in his own words.
A sociology, anthropology, or archaeology degree. Now, I decided to bunch these 3 together because they are somewhat similar and they lead to similar outcomes. And honestly, these 3 degrees make psychology look like a great investment because at least with psychology, you have a chance to get a master's or a doctorate where you can land a good paying job. Whereas with these, even if you do get a master's or doctorate, you are probably still not going to land a good job. But Shane, I love studying culture and human behavior. Hey, that's great. So do I. But you know what I don't love? Being broke and unemployed and living with my parents at 30 years old. Or having to explain to dates that I have a doctorate in anthropology, but I still work at H&M. So with these degrees, it's nearly impossible to get a job in the field, even with advanced degrees. And honestly, basically the only people making money with these degrees in the US are professors. And these are the people that are teaching other people how to get these useless degrees, which kind of sounds like a pyramid scheme. And one user commented that my niece graduated graduated from UCLA with a BA in anthropology, and she's now a bartender. And they added that some people with these degrees work in museums or universities, but most in basic office jobs like cashiers, financial aid, or student services. Not exactly a dream career, is it? So unless you're willing to get a PhD and fight hundreds of other people for an academic job, these degrees lead nowhere.
There is a lot to unpack there, and we are going to unpack it, unlike my luggage after a long trip. So in his graphic here, he seems to think that sociology, archaeology, and anthropology are all the same thing. We're going to set aside sociology because I am the friendly neighborhood anthropologist, not the friendly neighborhood sociologist. So we're just going to set that aside. So archaeology and anthropology. You might be saying to yourself, James, you just said that you're not the friendly neighborhood sociologist. You're also not the friendly neighborhood archaeologist. What's going on here? You're right, I'm not. But we're going to get there. So in the US, and literally only the US, because I've never seen this method applied in Mexico or Brazil or the EU, we have what's called the 5-field approach. And some of you eagle-eyed viewers out there might realize, James, there's not 5 fields in anthropology. There's 4 fields. You're lying to us. What are you doing? Calm down. Hold your horses. You're putting the cart ahead of the donkey. We're going to get there, all right? So, there are 5 fields in anthropology, and the reason why we have 5 fields has a lot to do with this guy named Franz Boas. We're not going to get into that right now. That's not what the video is about. We're not going to talk about the history of anthropology. I'm just going to tell you what it is. So anthropology very basically is the study of all things human. It's your language, it's your culture, it's your political systems, it's your past, it's your present, it's your future. If there is a thing that a human being has ever done, there is a niche anthropologist writing furiously about it so that we can preserve that knowledge. And so this big discipline has a big range as well. Some of it is very STEM oriented, like you'll see them wearing lab coats and working with biologists, anatomists, and all other kinds of people, geologists, who you would kind of consider more with like the natural sciences. And then you have guys like me who's do, like my master's degree was about primitive accumulation. So that's more like econ and social science and humanities more than it is like the STEM stuff. And it's really on a wide spectrum, right? And so we're gonna break it down. So what are these 5 fields of anthropology? The first one is the field formerly known as physical anthropology, but we now call this biological anthropology. And so biological anthropology, it seeks to, it's a very rude helicopter. I live in LA. So biological anthropology seeks to look at the origin of the human subject. And so the biological anthropologists, they are looking at ancient fossils. They are looking at also our primate relatives, and they're looking to understand how we came to behave the way that we do, how we came to evolve the way that we do, and they are really the most STEM of all of the anthropologists. They work very closely with biologists, they work very closely with geneticists, and all kinds of stuff. And so a good example of that would be this book. This is something that was assigned to me in grad school and one of my seminars for biological anthropology. Not the entire book, mind you, just a few chapters of it, but Jabolinka and Lamb are not anthropologists. Lamb is a biologist, and Jipotika, I believe she's a geneticist. So this is more of a STEM oriented discipline, right? They're trying to understand how we came here. They look at DNA, they look at genetics, they look at our bones, and they try to deduce how we got here. The next field is going to be archaeology. Archaeology is exactly what you just pictured. You have a guy, and he's gonna go out into the field. He's got a hat on, he's got his cargo pants, he's got his denim shirt, he's got a shovel, he's got his pickaxe, and he's going into the desert, he's going into the rainforest, he's digging for fossils, he's looking for temples, he's looking for structures, he's looking for lithics, he's looking for pottery. And I'm sorry, the reason why I'm saying he is because on my committee, the archaeologist happened to be a guy. Anybody can be an archaeologist. I promise I'm not being sexist. It's just that in my head, my reader, not my supervisor, but the person who read my thesis, one of them is an archaeologist. That's why I keep saying he. Anyways, and so like they're going out and they're looking for human culture in the past. the distant past. And so they want to know how people lived before now. And so you're gonna find them, like, I went to school in California, and so like all of my professors were experts in Mesoamerica. And so you're gonna go to Peru, you're gonna go to Mexico, you're gonna go to Guatemala, you're gonna go to these places, and you are going to see how they lived. You're gonna go to Tenochtitlan, Teotihuacan, you're gonna go to the Yucatan, you're gonna see all of these places, and you're gonna understand how they came, what their culture was like, how their language was like, what did they eat, what gods did they worship. And you're also gonna see like them working closely together with biological anthropologists, because they also want to know, how did they die? What diseases did they have? Were they eaten by jaguars? what happened? Was there violence? And so like you're trying to understand what their cultures were like back then. So that's the job of the archaeologist, the human past. The next one is linguistics. And linguistics tries to understand our languages. And this is also a very STEM and mathematics oriented field. They have a lot of models, a lot of Python is written in this field because they are modeling human language. They want to know where it comes from, like cognitively. They also want to understand what it is like in a cultural context. Why does certain words mean this thing in this area and certain words don't in this area? What do gestures mean? They are really concerned with human language. The next, the most important one, is not the most important, it's just mine, is social cultural. And so social cultural has two parts. The social part, where we try to understand the social relations of a given society. This is the economic stuff, the behaviors, that's all over there. And then the cultural stuff, which relates to religious rituals, the way you behave in society, things like this, how you dress, the food you eat, the gods you worship. This is what, and we put these together and we call this social cultural. We often are examining living people rather than archaeologists who are examining past cultures. And so what really separates us from the other anthropologists is that we are much more humanities focused, way more than the linguists and way more than, of course, the biological anthropologists. And so what that looks like in practice is we do a lot, and I do mean a lot, of ethnography. And so this is one example. This is a book that I was assigned to undergrad, and this was the first ethnography that I read. And this professor, she lived among the Yapakuk people in Alaska for a long time, and she learned about the gods they worship, the food they ate, the beliefs they have, the clothing they wore, and so she just lived among them and documented their cultures, their cultural practices, their ways of being, their familiar relations, and all these kinds of things. And so there's two kinds. You have the ethnography, which is what this person is. I don't believe this person is an Alaska Native, if I remember correctly. I haven't read this book recently, and I'm doing this off the cuff. And so like she's just an outsider living among them. And then you have the autoethnography, which is a person of a culture doing ethnographic research of their own culture. So it would be like if I went to an Orthodox church and I just was taking notes about the Coptic church. I am Coptic, and so it would be an autoethnography. I'm there explaining my own culture, my own religious practices. These are both valid. These are both fine. And they're both very normal. But yeah, this was the first ethnography that I read in undergrad, and so that's what makes it so different than the other anthropologists. And so now we got four, right? We got our archaeology, we got our linguistics, we got our bio, and we have our social cultural. What's the fifth one? The fifth one is applied. Applied anthropology is basically kind of a hodgepodge of everything else. What we're trying to do is apply anthropological methods to real world problems. So you will find urban anthropology, you will find medical anthropology. Those are the two big ones in California, at least. And so they are applying anthropological methods to urban planning, medicine, and these kinds of things. And they have their own goals, they have their own methods, but they're applying it, right? This is highly interdisciplinary. You will find urban planners that have anthropology degrees, and we're going to see some of those soon. But yeah, that's what we got here. So now that I've given you the biggest overview possible, biggest, broadest, least detailed overview possible, we are going to talk about what kind of jobs you can get with your anthropology degree and what an anthropology degree even is. with your anthropology degree, what kind of work can you do? So before we get into that, what even is an anthropology degree? So first of all, actually, before we even get there, what even is the anthropology discipline? Like, what do you need to be an anthropologist? And different people have different responses to this question. Some people will say, if you are doing the work of an anthropologist, you don't necessarily need a degree. And I disagree with this, but I kind of see why you would say that, right? I think you need to have at least a BA to be able to call yourself an anthropologist, even if you're doing the work. I think you should go to school for it. I think you should get something that says, I have a degree in anthropology, I study anthropology. I know that might be a very Western-centric view of seeing it. I'm not saying that you can't do good work without one, but I think to call yourself an anthropologist, you should probably have at least the education to back it up, right? But legally speaking, you can call yourself whatever you want. As far as I'm aware, like there's no board that says this is what, like a doctor. Like you can't call yourself a doctor without being board certified. We don't really have board certification per se. We have SOI standards if you're a public archaeologist for the government, but that's different, and we'll get to that later. So what is the anthropology discipline? So before we can get there, what you have to understand is that in anthropology, the terminal degree, the highest degree you can get, is a PhD. It's a doctorate, and PhDs are expensive and they take a long time. You get your PhD if you want to work in academia, if you want to be a researcher, if you want to be some kind of fellow, you want to be some kind of archaeologist, you need to have your PhD in anthropology. That's what you need. Most of us, though, do not have PhDs. Most of us have master's degrees. This is the sweet spot. You want to have a master's degree in anthropology. It's not that you can't get a good job in anthropology with just a BA. You very much can, and I'm going to show you that. But you need a master's degree to kind of be in that sweet spot. It also accelerates you in certain fields that we're going to get to in a second. And so, if you want to work in it, you got to have your master's degree, I would say. And this is not just anthropology, this is any field. English, music, geology. You can't just have a BA for the most part and just have job security. Most of us have master's degrees. I happen to hold a BA in jazz studies and a BA in anthropology and an MA in anthropology. I think that's good. I don't think you need more than that to work in anthropology unless you want to be some kind of public academic. So that brings us to the actual work. And so you kind of have three options as I understand it. You have public sector, private sector, and then your NGOs. And let's start with the public sector. You're going to be working, this is a very blue collar kind of job, right? You're going to be outside a lot. You're going to be probably a state archaeologist. You're going to be working for a government agency like the BLM, you're going to be working for a state or a local agency. You might be working for the Metro. You might be working for any government agency, and you are their archaeologist. Before they build things, you're going to be making sure that there's no human remains, cultural artifacts, or that kind of thing. And you are making sure that there's none before construction gets started. This is also CRM, that's in the private sector, but you're working for the government, basically, as an archaeologist. Sometimes you're doing that kind of work that's more CRM oriented, and we're gonna get there in a second, but sometimes you might just be like in a public park explaining to the guest what kind of people used to live here. Especially here in California with our beautiful parks, you're going to see like, oh, indigenous people used to live here. And they're going to explain to you what their cultures were like, what their languages were like, what their food was like, so that you can understand where you are in the world, right? Important, very important job. You're also going to be doing surveys. You're going to be doing GIS stuff. You're going to be doing LiDAR stuff, looking for these kinds of things as well. This is a very blue collar kind of job. You're not going to be behind the desk very much. It's very outside. And so it's kind of similar in the private sector. in CRM. And I'll explain more about what CRM is later once we start looking at actual jobs. But CRM basically stands for Cultural Resource Management. And CRM is exactly what it sounds like. You are managing cultural resources, and you typically work for a firm, like a private company, and you may work on behalf of an agency, or you may work on behalf of a land development corporation, or that kind of thing. They want to build a house, they want to build a railroad, whatever it is. And so what you're going to do is you're going to go first, and you're going to look for human remains, you're going to look for artifacts, you're going to look for whatever needs to be looked for before construction can start. Why? So let's just say that construction starts, and then you find a huge assemblage of pottery, of houses, and all kinds of stuff, and then construction has to stop. You have to figure out what we're going to do with all this stuff. You do it first, and then you collect all these things. You put them in museums. You put them where they need to go. Or if it's like Native American remains, you're going to repatriate them. I'm not going to talk about that because I don't do CRM as a job. But in California, when you do your master's degree, you must take CRM classes. And I'll put my grade right here. I only needed one because I am not an archaeologist. It's not my discipline. I'm social cultural. But we all have to take one. So yes, that's your CRM. That's your private sector. Jobs here are very good. You're starting at $30 an hour at the worst entry level, most blue collar job, all the way up to like $200K if as a project manager, which you can get pretty quickly if you got your master's degree and a few years of experience. But yeah, this is very blue collar. This is a very blue collar job as well. You'll be outside a lot. You'll be managing construction crews. You'll be teaching them like what these fossils may look like, or what these assemblages may look like. You will be digging. You will be also inspecting them to make sure that there's no pottery, there's no human bones, and that kind of thing. So yeah, that's CRM. I'm not going to get too into it. Like I said, it's not my job, but it's something I do know quite a bit about because they make us learn it. And then you have your NGO route. The NGOs usually, the biggest one I can think of would be like the UN. The UN is always hiring anthropologists, and they're especially looking for social anthropologists and forensic anthropologists. Some of my colleagues are going to be going to Gaza after this war is over, and they are going to be looking at the mass graves that were filled by the IOF, and they're going to be doing forensic anthropology on those guys to see like what exactly killed them. Was it being suffocated by the bombs that fell on their houses? They're going to see what kind of trauma they were exposed to. And then you have human rights officers that work for the UN. These are always not always, but these are often anthropologists as well. And so you have a lot. And then this is kind of an aside, you also have urban planners. Nowadays, urban planners often do have anthropology undergraduate degrees with master's degrees in urban planning, or they may not at all. They may just have a master's in anthropology and just publish about urban things. It's a whole thing. We're going to see some in a second, but that brings us to the jobs, the actual jobs you can expect to see with your degree in anthropology, and I'm going to tell you what jobs you can get with your anthropology degree. And we know I love a receipt, so we are going to Google together. Well, we're not going to Google together because I already pulled these jobs up, and I'm just going to show them to you. But it took me not even 5 minutes to find these. So let's look at a few. The first one we are going to look at is this entry-level position for a CRM firm in Oakland. By the way, all of these are in California because I live in California. Not really sorry about that. And so first of all, let's look at the compensation. $30 to $39 per hour. So for context, I worked in IT through undergrad and grad school, and I topped out at $38 an hour. That was the highest wage that I earned in InfoSec. I even still have an active Security Plus certification. So there is that. And so this is comparable to what you would probably earn in IT. So good job. And probably unionized, actually. Nah, maybe not. This is a on-call role. So I should explain that a lot of these roles in CRM are going to be on-call and temporary, and a lot of people work for 2 or 3 firms at the same time. And the reason why is that CRM jobs are usually project based, and you're a contractor, not a full employee, at least for a little while. And so what happens is that you are going to be working on this project for 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks, and you're just going to be grinding for this entire time, probably far away from where you actually live. But the good thing is that, one, if you're in a place like the Mojave Desert or the Death Valley, you are going to be, first of all, receiving hazard pay, and you're going to be receiving overtime, because these projects, usually you work from sun up to sundown, 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, and they will take care of your transportation, housing, and food while you're on the site. So this can be very lucrative while you're working on these projects, and then you finish one project with one firm, and then you go on to the next one, and eventually you just pick one that you like, and they'll hire you on full time after you have been working these part-time on-call projects for about maybe 2 or 3 projects. It kind of depends. I don't work in CRM. I'm not the right guy to tell you how long this takes, but like I said, we all take these classes when you're in grad school. So let's see what qualifications they want. They want a BA in anthropology, and they also want you to have experience doing archaeological surveys. Archaeological surveys are something that you get in field schools. And so when you are a junior or senior in your undergrad, you go do a field school, which means you're going to go overseas, usually the Middle East or Latin America, and you are going to do the work of an archaeologist. You are going to dig, you are going to measure, you are going to analyze, and you're going to publish something. And then after you finish all this, you're going to come back to your school and you're going to graduate. You're going to get 2 degrees. You're going to get your main degree, and you're going to get your field school certification. And so that's what they kind of want. That's where you get your experience in surveys. Oh, and this one even says field school desired. So there you go. The next one is GIS and GPS. This is also something you learn in undergrad. You can get a GIS certificate, especially if you're an archaeologist. At my school, there is a program specifically for GIS for anthropologists. So they offer it to you, it's ready, there you go. So if you come straight out of college, just your BA, in a field school, you can get a job like this. And there's hundreds of them just like this. The CRM field is huge. And it's worth a lot of money. I don't know how much money it's worth. I want to say like $2 billion in California. I'm going to put the number up here because I didn't Google it ahead of time. But it's a huge, huge, huge industry. And there's a good amount of money to be made. Since we're in CRM, let's look at a more senior level position. So this is a project manager. Usually you need to have a master's degree to be a project manager, or you need a lot of experience with just a BA, probably 5 years or more with just your BA, but they'll take 2 with the master's. Let's see. So they want 6 years here. They want 6 years. They want this specific experience with utilities for this job. They want 6 years of experience, BA, MA, or PhD, so they'll accept any of them. But you're gonna want nobody gets a PhD in CRM. You're gonna want your master's degree, CEQA and NEPA, which you will have if you've been working in CRM. So yeah, master's degree, experience, and let's see. For this, a master's degree, you can kind of skip it. This is more for a BA. If you got a MA and 2 years, 3 years of experience, I think that you can get a project manager position. And I bet you're probably going to be close to 6 figures for this. Yeah, pretty close. 88,000 to 126,000 with your master's degree and a few years of experience. But let's see an even more senior level position, see what we can find. Let's see this one. El Cerrito, California. This is definitely a senior level. Yeah, they want a MA or a PhD and 12 years of experience. They want really 20. That's crazy. No, that's not possible. 12 years is more than enough, I'm sure, with your PhD or master's degree. And your salary range, here we are. 6 figures, well into the 6 figures, probably more if you've got a PhD. You can definitely negotiate that to get $200,000. which is, I would say, a pretty good job. All right, so we got the private sector with your CRM. Let's look at the public sector, but we're gonna start with forensics. And so here we are. So this is where I did my undergrad at Cal State LA, and there used to be a formal program to where you would work with the LA County Department of the Coroner for forensic cases. And so the program was at my school, and so like you would have students who would intern, they would take their classes, and then they would go work in the forensic lab. Now, granted, Dr. Miller, she has retired, and so there's nobody to fill her place for now. So this program is not active. It will be eventually, but it's not now. But yeah, if you wanted to, you could get a degree in anthropology and then work for the coroner's office. And we're gonna see how much money they make. I got this document here. It's a pretty long PDF document, but I already pulled it up. You're gonna be earning between $4,000 and $6,000 per month with your BA in anthropology, but of course it goes up and up and up as you get your master's and PhD. At the PhD, I have seen some listings for the high six figures, like $350,000 to $400,000 for a coroner at the state level in Sacramento. If I remember where I found that, I'll put it on the screen right here. Otherwise, take my word for it. I'm sorry, this is off rip, but I remember seeing that, and so I'm gonna look for that later. All right, so here we are. We're gonna just do very quickly. We're gonna look at. We looked at the UN. Let's look at the UN real quick. You're gonna see here that this is a human rights officer, P4 tier, and they are looking for social science. In this context, I can tell you that means anthropology and sociology. You're not gonna do too great in this role with a psychology degree, I don't think. And they're asking for a master's. What do they make? They make between 90,000 and 117,000. And let's look at one more in the public sector, and this is going to be our city planner. This is a planning associate for Irvine, California, but this is not for the city of Irvine. This is just for a company that they contract with, the city of Irvine, and they are looking for, let's just see, BA in urban planning, geography, environmental studies, or related field. I can tell you that they would be fine with an anthropology degree. Lots of anthropologists work in urban planning, and all of these other skills here, zoning, land use, and planning, these are skills that you would learn in CRM. Same thing with GIS. Like I know so much about zoning and land use from CRM, even though it's not a direct job. And so like you can probably get your way into one of these jobs with an anthropology degree, but this is my LinkedIn. So let's just see what it thinks. It thinks that I match some of the requirements. Let's let it cook. And yeah, it kind of does. It gives me 2 out of 4. And so the only thing that's missing is the 2 things that I didn't specifically enumerate: zoning and land use, which is implied through all the regulations you learn, and urban planning, but I have it in anthropology. So there's that. There's a lot of jobs. I want you to understand that anthropology is not a dead field. Anthropology is not a meaningless field. It's not a dead-end field. There's lots of jobs, lots of career advancement, and it's a field we really need. We really need anthropologists and sociologists, especially now. We need all kinds of social scientists, especially now with what's going on. So that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you made it this far, thanks. That's pretty cool that you stuck with me for however long this video is. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.